Guys, the escalation in the crypto market is largely continuing. So we're mainly talking about the main coins here like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and similar ones. We have some altcoins that are pumping like crazy, but what's happening here right now is absolutely not so nice. Personally, I'm happy about it because it gives me the opportunity to buy in deeper. We'll also go through a few things today. We'll take a look at my swing long positions. Where have I placed my next orders for Bitcoin and Ethereum? But also, a limit long was triggered for Solana yesterday. Then we'll look at where my next spot purchases will come in. I've placed those on Bitget. I've also already bought a little more. You can see that up here. Once and twice like this, 0.11. I've now bought more Bitcoin as well. And these are my entry prices for spot purchases on PIONEX. But that's not all. Liquidation heat map 2-year view. There's still a huge cluster there, maybe where we were at the bear market bottom. Could show everything. In total, there are 35 billion US dollars here, which I think could be very, very interesting when we go through it later on the chart. For the bullish divergence, so that we can include it, let's take a look at how much has been liquidated since yesterday. And at the same time, right in this area, we have an incredibly large number of active long positions at Binance, but also at OKX. And we're talking about 10 billion US dollars that are long here. And by that, I don't just mean the small part where we entered here, but rather the amount of long orders that have now been filled in this area. 10 billion US dollars long versus 35 billion US dollars in liquidations below us. It remains very, very interesting to see how things will develop here. But of course, that's just a very broad and far-reaching perspective because on a smaller scale, on a weekly basis, ever since the big crash started here, we actually have plenty of liquidations above us. By now, there are over 2 billion US dollars up to a price range of about 74,400 to 74,500 US dollars. If this actually does lead to some kind of reversal now, we could see what might be a retest of the bear flag. And I'm curious to see whether we'll get back inside, meaning it was just a fake out, or whether this is the major rejection that will really take us down to the lower price zones here. You can already see it marked here. This is the cluster where around 35 billion are located. And that's where it would really be interesting for me to buy more in spot. But you'll see that in a moment with my spot positions, as well as my limit long orders that are waiting for Bitcoin. These are coin margin positions. That means I'm going long with Bitcoin itself, instead of using US Tether in order to increase my Bitcoin holdings. And at this point, we can see that at 54,502 US dollars. That's where the latest current position is. But I'm not done there yet. That's just a hedge in case we drop down more quickly now. I would continue to scale in if we reach those price ranges. Technically speaking, what does it look like? We've talked about this in the last videos. I don't need rejection to mention it again. We shorted that really well, by the way. Here's a quick update from the signal group. So that's basically how it's been the whole time, the consolidation. We also caught these shorts well here at break even. Unfortunately, we took a small stop loss yesterday, but that was with a very, very small amount of capital. And that didn't quite work out. And what didn't work out here? It's not really helpful if I just keep saying in the videos, hey, my analyses, now we have a Fibonacci level and you know my Fibonacci strategy. If you don't know it yet, check out my channel. Learn trading step by step to become a pro trader. Then you'll understand what I mean. But I didn't trade the 0.5, the 0.786 was interesting to me. That's exactly where I entered a long position. At the same time, we also have here the volume profile in this area here, where I thought, okay, maybe at least we'll hold the point of control in this case, but we actually are at the point of control. And you can see that very, very clearly here. We did get a brief support, but in reality, we dropped below it. That also triggered my stop loss, but that's part of the game. In this case, fortunately, the position was also very small. But these red boxes you see here, they were nothing other than the Fibonacci levels. I said the 0.786 would be very, very interesting for me because we have a confluence there. We didn't hold that level. You could really call it a waterfall sell-off because we also had the 0.618 here and wicked massively below it. Very interesting, maybe even now. The 0.786 could potentially provide us with support also in this area down here. But let's leave that out for now. What would a recovery look like now? Which Fibonacci levels would be interesting in that case? I can remove this now and I can remove this here as well. Fortunately, all the short bots have also triggered, but we haven't yet reached a Fibonacci level that is still very important. That would be exactly this one. And as I said before, we have liquidations here. The price drops down to around 74,500 US dollars. That could actually happen if we get a recovery now without making a new low. could lead us into the region of the 0.618 Fibonacci and even a bit above it, but for me that would again be an opportunity in this area to open a short position and try to ride it back down. As for a long position, I'm still waiting a bit. Let's switch to the smaller time frame. One moment. What's quite interesting now after this massive sell-off, as we can see, is the Williams VIX fix indicator. It shows us where a possible opportunity might be, but at the current moment I'm not acting on it yet. Here, I would at least like to see a small bullish structure on the 4-hour or 1-hour chart. That means I would like to see a larger upward move, which would then show me that I have an opportunity for a retest, and then I might try another long position, possibly up to the flag. But for that, I first want to see a Fibonacci level get triggered again. This means that if the price rises now and we then see a pullback, I would consider this area, because it's quite interesting, around the 0.618 or 0.5 Fibonacci levels. I would try a new long position at the Fibonacci level with a very, very tight stop loss. But we must not forget, above all, we are in a bearish structure. That would really just be a small attempt to catch a long position, just to pick up a recovery level. And these are exactly the large liquidations I see here, which could probably still be quite interesting. But let's stay with the liquidation heat map for now. Why exactly did I choose that spot? Let's also briefly take a look at the long positions. You know, I went long at around 69,500. The next order is waiting at 62,350. There, 0.4 Bitcoins will be added, and at 54,502, another 0.6 will be added. This has something to do with the liquidation heat map. On a 2-year basis, this exact area is very interesting. This large cluster, if we really see the bottom down there, that's exactly where my 0.6 Bitcoins will go in. Before that, we have one in the area around these lows here. What I also find interesting, we'll see on a 1-year basis. But now I've gotten the Pro subscription again so that we have access to the 2-year view, because it's actually quite exciting at the current moment. But if we really dip into exactly these price ranges here, then I would further increase my long positions as well, because altogether it would then be a bit over 1 Bitcoin in size at this point in time. But I would also look to maybe add another 2 or 3 Bitcoins there. That's also the reason why my spot orders are placed here. You can see here I'm buying 0.5 Bitcoins at 55,000 US dollars. On the liquidation heat map, that's exactly this price area here, so just above this cluster. So I don't want to miss my limit order in case we get a quick reversal here, even though I think we'll hit that level. And in addition, I'm gradually buying a bit more in the spot market. As you can see here, now I'm waiting another $1,000. There it was also $1,000, and there I bought 0.1 Bitcoin. And that's how I proceed on the way down, always entering with small positions. But the further we fall, the larger these positions become. That's what happens. Also on PIONEX, as you can see, I have exactly the same open. Once at 56,600 US dollars, 0.5 Bitcoins, and at 1,500 US dollars, another 10 Ethereum. And those would be these areas down here. But the question is, will the 10 billion US dollars that are long here hold out long enough so that we can say we can continue to rise? Because if we look at the liquidation heat map again, maybe scroll down a bit, let's take a look at 1 month and then maybe 3 months. But over 1 month, you can see it very clearly. At the current moment, just to visualize this a bit better, we're doing nothing other than triggering liquidation after liquidation to the downside. Everyone who is long is being liquidated. And you can see that here as well. Yesterday, another 1.8 billion was flushed out of the market. Those were the liquidations from yesterday. In this case, it was just under 1.6 billion US dollars in long positions. And the next cluster we have here is at 64,673 at the current time on a 1-month basis. After that, there's another one waiting at 61,000. But we must not forget that we are now building up large clusters above us, of course. 78,000, an incredible cluster. Here at 82,000, another incredible cluster. But what is the current market situation doing? By that I mean the geopolitical world situation. That's what's actually giving us this big sell-off right now. And of course, it's only a matter of time until we reach the liquidation level here. For example, on a weekly basis, the 74,000 to 75,000 range. Depending on how long that takes, it would actually be a retest of the bear flag. Or rather, of the Fibonacci levels. Unless, of course, we go even lower now and extend the Fibonacci. But at this point in time, in the event of a recovery, those would be my next rejection levels that I see. And if we go even further here, let's take a look at the 3-day chart. We must not forget we're building up an incredible amount of liquidations above us, of course. And that's what I mean now. So I don't just want to be bearish right now. At some point, I see a massive recovery coming that will basically scoop all of this back up. And here we can see how large the clusters are. Here we see how many of the long orders are currently being kicked out. We haven't experienced anything different before. During the 1.5 month rally here, it was the short positions that were being liquidated the whole time. And now the same thing is happening with the long positions. That's why I currently see this as very valid for us to somehow get an upward move. And just liquidate a bit there. A bit is putting it mildly, there's actually quite a lot above us. As I said, 2 billion US dollars, we shouldn't forget that. And we shouldn't ignore this on a daily basis either. By now we have two fair value gaps. The first fair value gap is exactly in this area here at this candle. And here there's also a second large fair value gap up to around 69,000 US dollars. There would also be another one here which is also super interesting. Accordingly, for now I'm sticking only with the DCA spots. And since I've activated the 2-year liquidation map, this premium map, I of course also want to show you Ethereum and explain why at around $1,500 for Ethereum over 2 years, I also see an opportunity to increase my positions and buy more here. And we see a very, very interesting pattern with Ethereum. We've actually pulled out and liquidated an incredible amount, billions here. We still have something strong here at 1714 down to 1670, but the 1600 US dollar level could be interesting. There's also a bit more down here at 1528. Maybe I'll raise my spot order for Ethereum at PIONEX a bit, setting it at 1,500 US dollars and place it at the 1,600 US dollar level. Because right now we don't see it going much lower, but if only these big clusters get picked up, I don't really care whether my entry price is $100 more or less, since I'm looking at this as a long-term investment. Chodiel, adding to my positions for the long term, just like we have here. Let me quickly show you what my Ethereum position looks like. It bought again yesterday in that range, as you can see. Another 3 Ethereum have been added to my position, so it's now almost 10 Ethereum in total, which is roughly 18,000 US dollars in Bitcoin. It's at just under 20,000 US dollars. I've done a little bit with XRP. That's a very small position that I'm compounding gradually. I went long here once, took partial profits here, and today I added a little bit more to lower the average purchase price. And then yesterday I also opened a position in Solana. You can see it here. I placed it here based on the liquidation heat map, specifically the longer term 1-year liquidation heat map. And it was triggered yesterday as well. So now in total, there are now 4 Solana in there, and more Solana are waiting at lower prices. You can see that, another 4 at 62 US dollars, and then 10 more Solana at 43 US dollars if we really drop that far. I hope you enjoyed the video so far. I tried to make the video as short as the last ones, but it just wasn't possible this time because there's really a lot happening in the market. But of course, I would appreciate a like and a subscription, and see you next time.